New coders, I'm going to give you 5 things you need to know about software development. Let's jump right in. What's going on, guys? We are back, another day, another video. So I'd imagine if you're watching this video, you are probably considering a future career in software development and or programming. I personally think this career is awesome. I've been doing it for about maybe 12 years at this point, but I want to give you some tips of things you should be made aware of. First thing, there may be days where the majority of your day is spent not writing code. Now, how could that be, right? You're a coder, you're supposed to write code. Well, honestly, there are quite a few factors that can affect how much code you write during the day. Presuming that you're working for an actual company, believe it or not, but the size of that company will determine how much you spend time coding. Ideally, as a coder, when you arrive to work, you put your book back down, you may go get a donut or something, talk to a few people, but when you sit down, you start coding immediately based off a feature set that's been provided to you. Now, in order to start coding off of that feature set, details regarding the features have to be clearly captured and defined. Us devs call these features, quote unquote, requirements. Now, having good requirements requires an individual working with the client to gather information that they need. Requirements requires. Yeah, try saying that 5 times fast, back to back. Requirements, yeah, I can't even do it. Anyways, we call this person a business analyst. What they do is they meet with the client, they take that information and translate it into a format for a developer to code off of. Let's say that you work at a company and there are no business analysts. That should put a halt in the project because you shouldn't start coding anything without a valid requirements document. In that situation, you as the developer may end up having to meet with the client to gather business requirements. Now, that is a last resort. Really, developers should not gather requirements at all, but given where you work at, given how many people are available, if you even have a business analyst, you may have to do it. I can tell you from personal experience, as a developer, requirements meetings can suck because they can take very, very long, depending on the number of features you need to build and how intricate they are. After all the requirements related work is completed, you may find yourself heading home without having written a single line of code. Which leads me to number 2. One of the things you need to know about software development is that coding in and of itself is not the most significant component when it comes to creating a successful piece of software. That may sound surprising because you can't even create software without writing code. I'd agree with that, that's very true, but any coder can write a piece of software. What's more significant is how that software actually meets the needs of the client who's going to use it. The best way to meet this objective is number 1, gather and document great requirements, and number 2, conduct effective quality assurance testing. The combination of these 2 things impact the end result at a higher rate than coding. When the requirements are bad, a developer can still write clean code, and a developer can still write unit tests to validate the code that they wrote. But bad requirements lead to gaps in understanding what the business needs, which in turn leads to coding incomplete features, which in turn leads to writing unit tests to validate the coding of incomplete features. So I'd imagine that you're starting to get an understanding of how important good requirements are. QA, or quality assurance testing, is the second part of that puzzle. So let's say that you have some decent requirements and the developer is able to effectively code to those requirements. Unfortunately, when the end client starts working with the system, they utilize it in a way that the developer didn't expect. For example, this could be something as simple as double-clicking on a button because they weren't sure that the first click actually went through. Double-clicking a button can actually be problematic given the functionality behind it. Say, for example, that you're crediting a bank account on a single button click. If they were to double-click, potentially you have 2 transactions, which means you're going to credit that account multiple times. Obviously, the user does not want to do that. Now, this is probably an edge case situation where the requirements didn't really say prevent double clicking, probably because this is an exceptional situation. Maybe most users single click. However, if one user can double click, that means other users can double click. So you need to account for that situation. This is where QA testing really plays a part. QA testing is also valuable because it allows the client to verify that their needs are met based on the initial requirements that were gathered. You'd be surprised at how often good requirements need minor updates after the client's played around with the product for a bit. All in all, I personally feel that good requirements and QA testing have a greater impact. Number 3, new developers. It is almost impossible to master a coding language, which is not a bad thing, and it actually makes a lot of sense. Companies like Microsoft are always looking to advance and push their products forward. This includes their programming languages like C#, where they're routinely making updates. Whether they are adding new features or deprecating old ones, what's more important than mastering a particular language is being aware and up to date with the new features that come out, and then being able to take advantage of them in your future projects. Number 4, research and your ability to learn may be your greatest skill as a developer. There are tons of developers who can write clean code. There are also tons of developers who can write great unit tests. But in my personal experience, the most valuable developers are able to come up with solutions that are not easily identifiable. Developers that can acquire new skills and integrate new tool sets in their workflow are invaluable. And as I stated before, changes are made so often in the programming field, whether it be updates to languages, new features, that being able to adapt makes you a highly resourceful asset. And finally, number 5, being an active developer outside of work can almost be just as important as your performance on the job. I know I'm sounding like a broken record at this point, but it is so important to stay up to date and be aware with the changes in your field. Unfortunately, trying to do that strictly on working hours is really difficult. So that means that portions of your weekends may be spent reading, coding, and or both. And it's necessary because it's actually possible to progress in your skill set while you're working at a particular job. Now, why is this? You may be saying, like, how can my skills get worse as a coder when I code every day at a particular company? To maintain productivity, many companies adopt a single platform and or code base to utilize for their team. For example, you may be working at a company whose IT department is 100% invested and integrated into Microsoft. And that means that it's a high probability that their app team utilizes Visual Studio and C# to handle back-end application duties. And again, to maintain productivity, they may utilize a single UI library, such as React, to handle all the interface-related things. As an organization, it makes sense to have a singular platform and or code base for producing apps, mainly because it allows you to adopt a singular workflow that the entire team has to adhere to. It requires much more overhead to build and maintain products that were constructed from different languages and frameworks. Unfortunately, this singular method could halt your growth as a developer. React is really popular, so let's use that for example. Let's say that you're working at a company and you utilize React to Visual UI, and the company's great, but say that a new version called React 360 comes out. Now, React 360 is completely new, but it's supposed to be a better version of React. It's highly unlikely that you'll ever use this React 360 because all your apps are currently using the current version of React. However, you don't want to be completely unaware of how this new React 360 works because you need to stay up to date and maintain your marketability and brand or skills as a developer. So the solution would be to basically try React 360 at home. And again, React 360 is fake, so I just made that up. So I hope I didn't scare away any of you new developer prospects. I really just wanted to give you some insight just from my experience, just some things to be aware of. And that's it, I think I'm done. So I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Please continue to like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell icon, all that jazz, and I will see you on next time.